Austin Ricci back-to-back games with a goal, and that was special.
Pressure from Fry. It sits up in the box. Navarro, Vasco Fry on the doorstep. Vancouver defends home turf. Derby number 1 goes to VFC.
Canadian Premier League Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Welcome back to week 7, which gave us 11 goals. I'm Charlie O'Connor-Clarke. That's Mitchell Tierney over there next to me. This was quite the entertaining weekend. Mitchell, almost as good as pistachio ice cream. As we heard just before we started recording, that producer Benedict thinks it's bad, which is an objectively wrong take. But we are trying to forge through the rage that's causing us and talk about an incredible weekend in the Canadian Premier League.
That's a Zoomer take for sure. The only way you don't like pistachio ice cream is you thought you were eating mint chocolate chip and got shocked by the fact that it wasn't mint.
It's got some savory. It's salty. It can be sweet. It's the best. It's a really good ice cream flavor. We're gonna have Benny on later, and we will, instead of answering his questions, just grill him on this. But let's get to it as quickly as possible. Let's talk about York United and Halifax Wanderers on Friday night at York Lions Stadium. I was there. This was a strange game going into it. Obviously, for those who don't know, it was a weird one for York United, as obviously Martin Nash being parting ways with the club earlier in the week, which meant that Mauro Eustáquio took over with just 2 training sessions, I think, to kind of complete the game plan that they'd already been working on. An emotional one for Mauro, especially having I think just arrived back in Toronto on Monday after he flew to Portugal very quickly to unfortunately mourn the death of his father, who passed a couple of weeks ago. So it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks for him, but it is a win for Mauro and for York United in his first game as a professional head coach. Mitchell, this was quite the story, right? York kind of coming out strong in the first half, scoring these 2 goals, and then kind of being able to put the game to bed in the second half by not letting Halifax into those dangerous areas.
Yeah, I think smart from Mauro Eustáquio to not make too many changes to this side. Especially in that short amount of time, and kind of keep things pretty consistent to what Martin Nash had done before them, especially when they were in pretty decent shape coming into this game. But I think beyond, getting a win after such a chaotic week, the other thing is they got a win against a team that they should reasonably be expected to beat at home, especially in this stage of the season. And that wasn't something that they necessarily did very well of last year. I mean, they got just 3 of 6 wins at home against teams who finished below the playoff line last year. They lost to Valor both times they played them at home.
Yeah.
And, not necessarily saying that Halifax will be there come the end of the season, but this is clearly a team that's struggling. And when you play a team like that at home, you want to take care of business always. And they did that. And I think for again, a York team that's trying to make this York Lions Stadium more of a fortress this year, this is the kind of result that will make that the case.
Yeah, and they are making York Lions Stadium quite a fortress. It's 3 in a row at home that they've won. Scored at least twice in all of those games. They beat Vancouver, then Valor, and now Halifax. And one of the things that I wrote about with York that I liked about how they played in this game is they've looked pretty good to me in this more 4-1-4-1 shape that they've done the last few weeks. They started in really the last kind of year and a half. They played that 4-2-3-1, but this is a little bit wider. They had Solanovic and Ricci out on the wings, and that kind of helped them to overload Halifax's maybe slightly narrower setup. Obviously, Halifax get Lorenzo Caligari back for this game, so him and Rampersad in the middle is kind of a no-go zone. If you're York, you're probably not going to have much luck trying to play through there. So that's why you have your central midfielders, Brent Samaro and Josue Martinez, kind of drifting out to the flanks to help create those numerical overloads, and that is really something that helped them. I was pretty impressed by just the way that they played so directly in the first half. I thought Max Ferrari was outstanding, kind of bombing forward. He plays Brian Wright in for the second goal, and then Wright making the selfless play across to Dennis Solanovic to score. So I think, and obviously Austin Ricci comes in from the wing to score his goal. It's kind of a confident moment for him. You can tell how well he's been playing this year. Just the fact that he kind of sits up at the top of the box and just flicks it with the toe of his boot off the far posted in. Quite the highlight reel goal, of which there were several this weekend, and we'll get to them. But I think this is a really, really emotional and a really, really special moment for York United at home. And just to kind of put a bow on that, let's go to York Lions Stadium and hear from, for the first time as interim head coach on this podcast, at least, which is, the stage you want to be on. Let's hear what Mauro Eustáquio had to say after his first professional coaching win.
No, I think, overall it was good. I thought the first half was quite positive. The second half was positive in a different matter. I think the guys in the first half showed football. We understand the game plan. They stuck to their roles. They did their tasks, both on and off the ball, and I think that's a very positive thing to build on. And then in the second half, we did what we had to do. We slowed the game down when we had to slow the game down. We defended when we had to defend. Yeah, it could have been better with the ball, definitely. But that's something that we are aware of. The players are aware of. But I can't blame them for not working, for not defending, for not trying. I think overall it was a very positive performance, and like you said, it's the third one at home, and brick by brick, we want to make sure that this is a fortress.
Obviously, Eustáquio probably only going to be in charge of this team for a couple of games. Ricardo Pascual from York United said earlier in the week that they're looking at hopefully being able to announce a new permanent head coach after the Forge game next weekend, so sometime in about a week from now. But obviously Mauro being a former Canadian Premier League player who got his first start in the coaching game and here at York, it's nice to see him kind of have that opportunity to take charge for a game, and obviously a man who wants to be a head coach one day somewhere. So it's good to get your feet in the door. Mitch, let's move on to Halifax though. Life is tough for a Wanderers fan at the moment. It's frustrating. 1 point in their first 6 games. I don't know. Is it the same story? I mean, I think they played okay in this game. They played better in the second half, certainly, but again, for me, it's just not quite there in the final third, right?
Yeah, lost at sea a little bit. I mean, you go in a match
Wandering.
Wandering. Yeah, all those all those things that we can come up with, but you go in and you allow a team that hadn't scored a first half goal all season to score 2 in the first 32 minutes. You would have hoped to have come out a little bit stronger than that. And, we saw almost some misguided attempts to do that. Like there's a moment early in the game where Julian Dunn just goes through, I think it was Ferrari on the sideline. And that's one of those, you're trying to make a rally tackle, but it was just such a bad tackle that it kind of did the opposite and maybe just fired up York a little bit. And obviously, we saw the results of that. Again, just no answer at the number 9 position. There's no one on this team who's stepped up and been able to score. I think it's good probably to get Ryan Telfer his goal, and it was a really well taken goal from him. But again, there's just no offense about this team right now, and that's going to be a big issue, especially when it doesn't get much easier and you're going into the nation's capital this week. And that's not a place where you want to go right now if you're struggling. Now, with that being said, I do think this is an opportunity for them because Ottawa is coming off that game midweek. They have to travel across the country. That's almost a game where you can will your way to victory. That's what this team really needs to do right now. I mean, more than even the tactics or anything else within their game, they just need to outwork an opposition team. And next week will be an opportunity to do that. But this week was a real missed opportunity to show that bit of fight.
Yeah, you're right. I do think that you're right. They just need one to go right for them. Nothing has gone right for this club really this year. Just nothing. And it's one of those cycles where things continue to pile up against you, and your confidence dips like that. You can talk about not wanting to get too low in the low moments, and I know that they do, and the coaching staff will talk about that too, but it's impossible not to a little bit when things just are continuously not going your way. As you mentioned, off to Ottawa next weekend, Ottawa playing, in Pacific in the Canadian Championship midweek. But that is going to be still a tough game.
Yeah.
Ottawa,
No
I think 16 points ahead of them in the standings after 7 weeks.
Jeez.
That is a lot. That is a lot, man. And again, there is a lot of talent in this Halifax team. We've seen what they can do last year. it's just they need that first one to come. Like it's fully possible that first one comes, and then they're off to the races. They go on an incredible summer run, and they're back in the top half of the table by the end of August. But it needs to start happening soon. We do talk about how it's still early in the season, but we're approaching the quarter mark of the year. It has to start sooner rather than later if this isn't to be a frustrating and possibly wasted season for Halifax. Anyway, speaking of Ottawa, which is where Halifax is going next, let's go there now, because on Saturday afternoon, Atletico Ottawa took on a Forge team flying high after beating the CF Montreal in the Canadian Championship on Wednesday, but maybe didn't have a full tank of gas for this one, because Atletico Ottawa on I think it was Toonie Dog night at TD Place, which personally, if I was a player, that would fire me up. They come here to play. They come here and they basically play Forge off the pitch. Manny Aparicio scores that first goal from a screamer, Zapatero with another one, and then obviously, as always at the moment, it seems, Ruben Del Campo with the third goal. Mitch, what did you like about the way Ottawa approached this game? And are they the informed side in the CPL at the moment?
Well, I really liked the halftime wiener dog race. I think that was
Hell yes, brother.
anything we saw in this game, and it was a 3-0 game, but look, this was a really mature and strong performance from this Ottawa team, and a lot of the things that we wanted to see from them in the past few weeks. One thing I really liked that they did was how they managed possession during this game. I mean, when you're playing Forge, they're always going to hold a lot of the ball, but when Ottawa won it back, they didn't just rush to get the ball up the pitch and take those offensive opportunities in transition. They did that a few times, but most of the time it was, okay, let's hold the ball now. Let's force this Forge team that have just come off a 5-hour marathon match with delays in Montreal to spend a lot of the time chasing the ball, which is something they did for most of that second half, especially against Montreal. So they were already tired. They used that to that advantage, and crucially did an excellent job of putting this match to bed. Again, something we've maybe harped on this Ottawa team a little bit because they are at such a high standard is, we want to see them score that second and third goal.
Yeah.
This game they did that, and they did that via their depth. Zapatero coming off the bench, getting his first CPL goal. Danny Moreira playing such an excellent 1-2 there, and then playing through Ruben Del Campo. That's really strong as well. And they scored in different ways. An individual rocket from Manny Aparicio, a set piece goal, a great team goal. Just a lot to be really excited about this Ottawa team through this performance. And again, Forge tired coming in, but they really, they took advantage of that and used that in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really like that Del Campo goal. That last one, just a little
Lovely
piece of
football.
Interplay along the flank with Bassett and Moreira with the flick. This is an Ottawa team playing the most attacking football it ever has in club history. It's not a super high bar, I'll say, to be fair.
I saw them in the opposing half a couple times.
But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun watching this team. They're first place by what is that math? 4 points. They're 4 points up on Vancouver FC at the top of the table. Things are looking up. Del Campo setting a CPL or tying a CPL record by scoring in 5 consecutive games, tying Arabin Pepple back in 2022. Yes. I think that was 2022 for Cavalry. He went on a run of scoring a goal in 5 straight games and then immediately was sold to Luton Town. But yeah, Del Campo will have a chance to break that record next Saturday against Halifax, or is it Sunday? I'm not sure. We'll find Sunday, out later when we see the schedule board. It'll be a nice surprise for me. It is Sunday, okay. And the other guy on Ottawa that we want to shout out is Manny Aparicio, who, we know what kind of a player he is. We've seen it now at 3 different CPL clubs, how he can kind of make the game his own, and pretty much no matter what, stand out and dictate a lot of the flow of a game. And we've seen what he can do when he hits a ball from midfield like that, like he scored the first goal, but just the way that he controls space, wins battles, picks out passes. He's just for me, I think one of the most iconic players in the Canadian Premier League at the moment, and certainly probably the most impactful new addition to this Ottawa team this year. but quickly, let's go to Forge because it was a big week for them. Mitch, you mentioned the 5-hour odyssey that they had in Montreal, where the rain opens up at halftime, this thunder, and then it was kind of put a halt to their incredible momentum in the first half in Montreal, where they're up 2-0, and then they come in and they weather a second kind of storm in the second half, where it kind of felt like Montreal were at least going to score 2. So thank God for the away goals rule. Anyway, that was exhausting and a really emotional day. They come into this game, maybe not super surprising that they were a little bit just didn't quite have the same energy at the start of the game as Ottawa did. Mitchell, what did you notice about Forge, and do you think there's really much for them to be worried about here?
Well, where I think that really did manifest itself was in attack. They got into the final third a lot. They had 78 final third entries. They had a lot of the possession, as you would expect them to always have. But 22 touches in the box, which is the same as Ottawa, and 0.31 expected goals, which is their fewest of the season, and just 7 shot attempts. So it felt like they were doing a lot of the right things until they got the ball into that final third, and then kind of the maybe tiredness and indecision took over, and crosses were long. Interplay wasn't nearly as sharp as it's been in the past. Decent chances, not going the right way. Different things like that, where we've seen them be so sharp and clinical in the final third this season, and it just wasn't the case on Saturday. I think really this sets up a huge game now against York United at home this coming week. I mean, we're previewing a lot of games this week on the show, but I think that's for good reason, because it's going to be such an enthralling weekend in the Canadian Premier League coming up, and made possible by the results and performances of this past weekend. I think they've clearly prioritized the Canadian Championship the past few weeks, and I think obviously that was the right decision, because they earned a absolutely historic result, for the club. And finally defeating an MLS side and getting to the semifinals. I think that's definitely worth it. But you don't want to go 4 straight without a win in the league if you have ambitions there. And this is what happened to them last year. They came flying out of the gates, and then they hit. I think it was they didn't win they didn't lose in their first 7, and they won just one of their next 7. Yeah. They can't let that happen again if they want to stay in this race. And so, a massive match coming up for them against York United.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially after you went 3-0 to start the season. Quickly, Forge have played, a lot of their key players have played a lot of minutes now. I think it's 9 players have started at least all but one of their games so far this year, which is what is that? 8 games of football that they've played. 9. Sorry, again, we're doing the quick math on the side. They've played 9 games, and 9 of their players have played in every single one of them and started at least 8 of those. So that's a lot of football for a lot of these guys who have played a lot of football every year for Forge. But I think Bobby Smirniot is not taking that as an excuse. So just to wrap up this game, let's go to TD Plays and see what the Forge gaffer had to say about their performance in Ottawa.
Yeah, I think that's where you see a little bit of the difference. Like I just said in the room here, I think overall we've played a pretty good game. We just weren't sharp enough in the final third, and we've gotten into some very good situations. And details make the difference in this game. Not clearing the zone on that first goal with 2 opportunities, and then on the flip side, I think we've got a very good penalty call in the box for ourselves, and those are the small details that make a difference. Those change the games in that situation. That's just football. You move on, and in the second half again, we're in good spots, but we're missing a little bit that sharpness on the finish, on the final ball. Yeah, maybe that's the psychological drain of Wednesday, but you're Forge. If you want to be good, you have to learn how to play every 3 days, and we've done this before. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's the first time we've come to the nation's capital and lost a game, but that's always going to happen at some point.
You're Forge, huh? Bobby would say. He's right.
No more Bobby impersonations on the show.
No, we will not.
You have to at least wear the beard if you're going to do a Bobby impersonation.
Oh, from the wall. Yeah, I will next time. Anyway, moving on from this game out to the West Coast in Vancouver, where we had a pretty pretty exciting BC derby between Vancouver FC and Pacific FC, Mitch. Pacific going ahead early from the penalty spot, thanks to Ayman Salouf, who is for them mercifully back and in the starting lineup. But then Vancouver find a way back into it, and they've done it a couple times before against Pacific. Is that 3 derbies in a row they've won now, going back to last year?
Correct.
So no longer little brothers, I think. Maybe despite losing the first 2 last year, I think this has been quite even footing between these sides, and obviously we see where Vancouver are in the table now after this win in second place. But it's Moses Dyer just before halftime. You'll see here if you're watching on YouTube, with that kind of just being stronger than a defender, getting through on goal, and it's not a very pretty one, but they all count the same. And then the late winner, thanks to Vasco Fry, who has been pretty phenomenal this year. Mitch, what stood out to you about this game, and how impressive were Vancouver to come back and get this derby win?
Yeah, I think a real fantastic second half that really could have gone either way. Like both sides, kind of at halftime regrouped and then really just went for it in the second half. And that's what you want to see, obviously, in a derby match like this. Again, we're talking about home form this year, and Vancouver have been excellent at home, and this is another big home result for them, and obviously a very important showcase match for that club with what had been going on in Vancouver soccer certainly this past week, and also playing their rivals as well. Again, 3 straight in the Salish Sea Derby and 3 big results in a row, I think, for them as well, to move up into second place. So yeah, again, if you can start to build some momentum at home, we're seeing that be the real differentiation in teams in the table this year. So yeah, a big result for them, and a big second half performance to turn the match around, and that's another one for them this season. They've done this a few times now where they've been able to fight back after taking an early goal against.
For sure. Yeah, it was a fun atmosphere in Vancouver. Derby Day, lots of traveling fans from Pacific. Obviously, we know a few Whitecaps jerseys in the crowd. I think we saw. Obviously, anybody that was disappointed by a certain Argentinian player not showing up in Vancouver, they got to go to Langley instead, and there were also plenty of pink jerseys that weren't just the Vancouver cherry blossom in those stands. But I hope that some of those people that might have been at their first Vancouver FC game, it is not their last. They are certainly welcome to come back and see them throughout this season. Very quickly, just to wrap up on Vancouver, Mitch, I know Afshin Gotbi spoke quite a bit about Vasco Fry after the game, who scored that winning goal. I know he's a player that's impressed you. Just what kind of has stood out to you about how he has maybe under the radar become a very, very important player for this club?
I think Vancouver maybe have a little bit embraced the dark side moniker this season. And I think you see in players like Vasco Fry and Moses Dyer, they just make them so tough to play against. Like they aren't afraid to go into those tackles in midfield or up top. Like they're going to be constantly on you and hounding you in possession. And then, they both have the quality to turn that around and score nice goals, or score goals like they did this week, where it was, pure hustle and pure effort. Fry picking off a pass late in that match, and then Moses Dyer, as he's done a few times this season, just, bundling the ball over the line himself. So I think that's what I really like about Vasco Fry, specifically, is he just really fits that mold, and really developing, again, like you said, into an underrated key part of this Vancouver team that is flying high right now.
Absolutely. Let's go back and see if Afshin Gotbi agrees with you on Vasco Fry.
I think what maybe the public doesn't know, when Vasco didn't have a chance to stay in the Whitecaps, he was playing in the second team, couldn't crack the first team, they let him go. There's so many times and so many different ways he tried to contact me. And I still remember the day where he stood outside of this room, he watched the game, and he stood there. It was dark outside, everybody was gone. I came out, and he was standing there, and he looked at me, he says, "I want to play here." And I was so impressed with that comment, and the fact that he showed so much persistency to want to join this club, and I thought that's the kind of player we want. And I, of course, knew about his qualities, and I feel that he's really grown in confidence, stature, just his presence in the middle of the park, the tackles he wins, the services he gives, and to be able to now come in the second line and join the attack and score is a great bonus. And of course, the Olympic goal that he scored off both posts is probably something that I always say it's from Hollywood. It's bended like Vasco.
She's such a good storyteller.
He really is.
You can really see the picture of Vasco kind of standing outside and like in a rom-com or something. I'm imagining it raining. Anyway, also the Whitecaps catching a lot of strays today, but perhaps unsurprising. Just to wrap up on this game, Mitch, Pacific started the season outstandingly well. They had that clean sheet streak, which was broken last week by Ottawa, but they maybe aren't feeling quite as good as they were a couple of weeks ago. I guess haven't won in their last 3 in all competitions. 2 of those were 0-0 draws, but they've scored 1 goal. Or sorry, last 4 in all competitions. They've scored 1 goal in their last 4 games, and that's harder to make up for when a key defender like Ali and Dom does his Achilles and is unfortunately out for the season. So a bit of a tough moment. Mitch, how worried are you if you are Pacific FC right now?
I think James Merriman called it their worst performance of the season and was disappointed that it came, in a derby match as well. I think you are concerned because the hallmark of this team, obviously, so far this season has been the defensive play. And I think from a defensive performance, absolutely, this was their worst performance of the season. They allowed way too many chances. Dyer could have easily had more than 1 in this game, and you're very disappointed in the way you concede that late goal because it was a very avoidable mistake playing it out from the back the way they did. A single point in this game, while maybe not ideal for this team considering their ambitions, that's a decent road result against a tough Vancouver team that hasn't given away points at home easily this season. So to lose the match in that way, obviously having Salouf back will help the offense, but we haven't seen much from it. They had a lot of looks in that second half, which I think was positive. I think they had 17 shots, which is better, and at least it was maybe more. There was more intent offensively from them, which is a positive sign, but they kind of sacrificed their defensive structure to do that. And, again, when that's been what's getting you your results so far this season, it's a bit of a concern. So kind of similar to Forge now. I mean, obviously they have this massive Canadian Championship game coming up that they'll want to get a result in, but, you don't want to drop, I think, like you said, 4, it would be for them as well in the league if they lose next week against the Cavalry side, who are also going to want to win. So another big game coming up this week in the Canadian Premier League that you are very much going to want to tune into.
Yes. Speaking of Cavalry, that's where we will go next to wrap up our run around the CPL from the weekend. Cavalry back at home after an emotional night for them as well against lots of airtime for this club, but the Whitecaps on Tuesday night, Cavalry beating them over 90 minutes, but the away goals rule, unfortunately, putting them out of the competition. Anyway, they come here at home to play Valor. Not a great first half. I think they would admit. I think everybody on their side admitted. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. spoke after about it. He thought they were a little hungover from the Whitecaps game. Not sure what precise kind of hangover, but I mean, it was an emotional night on a Tuesday, and maybe not as much gas in the tank as a Cavalry team normally would have in its first half. That's why they made 2 halftime substitutions, which we'll talk about in a sec. But Valor going ahead on the road, holding on in the second half for the point. Mitch, I think Valor's probably the much happier side with the result, right?
Most definitely. I mean, we saw what this Cavalry side is capable of in midweek in the Canadian Championship. I mean, that was a fantastic performance where, from Carducci all the way forward, basically every player on that team had an outstanding effort. And obviously, that when you play that hard, that's going to carry into a game like this. But Yeah, I think they just haven't been able to figure it out, especially in attack. I mean, they have a clear attacking identity with Fraser Aird. I mean, once again, he's his service into the box this year has been fantastic, but too often it's just Malcolm Shaw in there. On set pieces, you can get Klopp forward, but you want Warshevsky in there a little bit more, and he's been a bit wider. So I wonder kind of what the answer is there. And then when you're missing guys like Akio and Ali Musi as well, this team has the weapons, but it just maybe hasn't been sharp enough. And again, at home, which has been really where this club has been so successful in recent years, to drop another point against a team, or another 2 points against a team like Valor, who obviously haven't had a great start to the season. Yeah, just a disappointing performance from them, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I mentioned, Cavalry changing the entire double pivot at halftime with Jesse Daly, Charlie Trafford coming off, Diego Gutierrez and Shamit Shom coming in. That did change the game for them a lot. Tommy Wilden admitted that it was not something they'd been planning to do, but he definitely felt that, Trafford and Daly didn't really have it in this game. He said that they were losing the midfield battle, pretty plain and simple, and it's a pretty honest assessment, and I think it's true. And Cavalry take full control of the game after that. I think they had 9 shots in the second half. Really were the aggressors, but no way through for them. Valor, I think, do deserve some credit for how they approached this game. That first half was good. I think they knew this would be a tired Cavalry team. And you can see that they had a little bit more confidence after getting that first win in Halifax. Just, even the fact that Juan Pablo Sanchez took that shot in the first half, you can see him kind of driving through midfield. He keeps looking up and being like, are they really going to keep stepping off me like that? Because Cavalry's backline just did continue to backtrack, and you can see a moment where Sanchez is kind of like, oh, okay, and just takes the shot and it goes in. And so very good for him for spotting it. But, they had to do a lot of kind of last ditch and desperate defending in the second half. And I think they did kind of survive that part of the game. But Mitch, their 7-game road trip to start the year is done. Finally, they are back at home, Princess Auto Stadium. It will take me a second to get that nailed down. Next Sunday, they're playing Vancouver FC there. How do we assess this road trip as a whole, Mitch? And do things feel a lot better now because they've got a couple decent results in the last 2 games than they did, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think certainly. I think they're playing a lot braver. And you mentioned the shot that Juan Pablo Sanchez took. I mean, that's the goal they've scored, 3 times now, is those kind of long ranger efforts that, you need to be confident to try. And we've seen that a little bit more from this side in the past couple of games, is they're willing to kind of take those chances, whereas before it was a little bit more unsure. Been better in possession as well, which was critical in this game, especially in the first half, again, against the tired Cavalry side. So they did that very well. And I think overall, it wasn't, it wasn't a great road trip. They'll be, disappointed to have left, some points on the table that they might have been able to get, certainly in Hamilton and some of those other games. And, I think there was a couple games in a row where they didn't quite show up for them in the right manner. But if you were going to take 4 points from 7, I think to have them at the end of the road trip is probably the ideal time to have them in terms of swinging into your home season. Now, like, you've played half of your road schedule for the entire season already. That's done. They have, 4 from 7 is not great, but it's not going to absolutely bury your season on the road, at least, if you can now turn around and turn Princess Auto into a fortress the way it has been in past years, not last year, but the seasons before. So yeah, I think I think it's, I think they'll be very happy to come or to see this road trip come to an end, but even more happy now that it has, a bit of a happy ending for them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And something that kind of Phil DeSantis has alluded to is when you're on the road every single week, you have a travel day before a game every week. You do not get a lot of proper training sessions where you can actually work on things and add to your tactics and build your identity, because so much of it is just recovery and things like that when the weeks are like that. So I think now that they have some weeks to just be at home, they don't have to travel to a game. They don't have to travel from a game. They can do the recovery on those days. They can have actual training sessions. They've got more to build on now at the end of the road trip than I think they had earlier. So as you mentioned, definitely better to get those results later when they're about to have some time to kind of capture that and make sure that that they can build off it. And again, one other thing that we definitely need to shout out with Valor, because it's a really, really good story, is Raphael Ohin getting on the pitch. This is, I guess, his second game in 2 years. He played one game at the start of last season, and then I think redid his knee injury. So he's missed a lot of time. So very, very emotional for him to get back on the pitch. He's got a great story as well. You can go look it up. We've got lots of writing and stories about Raph and his journey to playing professional football in Canada. So again, really, really good to see him out there. A little scary at first when he like his first action on the pitch is that just immediate aggressive tackle, and I'm like, oh my god, did he just do it again? But a good reintroduction to the league, and there was a moment when he was kind of driving forward on the ball and he like kind of primed to shoot, and I was like, man, if that were to be the way that this game goes and Rafa O'Heen scores like an 85th minute screamer to win it, like that'd be too scripted, I think, for me. But it would be amazing anyway. Really good to see him out there. Hopefully,
we need to save some of the CPL scripting for
we do. It's too early.
Another Olympico in the final, I think.
We can write new material. But I really hope that Raph is able to kind of get his form back and be the regular part of this team that I think he really wants to be and that he can be. Anyway, that is our 4 matches for the weekend. Before we bring Benny in for some stoppage time, let's just take a quick look at the standings as they are after week 7. Atletico Ottawa way out in front, 17 points plus 9 goal difference, which is pretty crazy compared to the second best being Pacific at +3. But then after Ottawa, you've got Vancouver and Pacific, followed by Forge and York, both on 10 points. Cavalry just outside the playoffs on 8. Bit of a gap down to Valor on 4. And then Halifax Wanderers all on their own in the bottom of the table with just the 1 point. Again, as we mentioned, they need to start turning that around quickly. But we will look at now what chance they have to do that next weekend with the schedule. As we've kind of alluded to, there's Canadian Championship on Wednesday between Pacific and Ottawa, but match week 8 in the CPL. Forge and York United Derby Day on Saturday, June 1st at 4 o'clock, followed that night by Pacific and Cavalry, 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Mountain, whatever that is, 7 o'clock Eastern for us out here in Toronto.
Way too much math on this show.
Dude, I'm so good at doing it on the fly now. I'm getting so much better. No, I'm not. Sunday afternoon, Atletico Ottawa hosting Halifax Wanderers. Huge game for the Wanderers. Ottawa will have a chance to remain in first place as well, so they'll be very, very keen for that one. It's a 2 o'clock kickoff local time, 3 o'clock if you're in Halifax. And then finally, the Tony Bet match of the week, the first game on the new turf at the newly renamed Princess Auto Stadium, as Valor FC are in Winnipeg once more to host Vancouver FC, the battle of the VFCs. They kick off there at 4 o'clock Central Time, 2 o'clock if you are a Vancouver fan. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me as I did reading and math. Anyway, we will now bring Benedict Rhodes on to give us some stoppage time here. Benny, aside from your horrendous take and opinion in ice cream flavors, I will defer to you now and let you kind of take over here.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are better predicting award winners than at naming your favorite ice cream flavors. But
award for worst ice cream opinions.
So we're going to do a bit of an awards segment here. We can do it either as a prediction if you want, or you can do it as who deserves it so far through the first quarter of the season. But to kind of run through each one.
Let's do who deserves it so far, because that's what you told us, and I don't want to be stitched up again by you.
Well, I feel like it's kind of both. It's kind of both. Like someone outstanding so far. Anyway, yeah, we'll do it through 7 games.
So we're at the quarter mark of the season.
Gloves. The
Golden Gloves for goalkeepers. Mitchell, do you want to go first? This is the one that I actually had the most trouble with.
Sure. I think it's Emil Gazdov. I mean, he's allowed just 3 goals so far this season. I know he hasn't maybe made the save numbers of other goalkeepers, but I think we've seen him be more active off his line, make a lot of really good claims and kind of proactive plays that have stopped a lot of chances. So I'm going to go with Gazdov.
That's a good one. So that's a good one. Maybe I'll say Callum Irving.
Not a bad shout.
Just to say a different answer. Yeah. It's early in the season. It's really hard to pick a goalkeeper like that because it's a lot of recency bias that goes into it. But that is where I will go to start. We'll check back in a few weeks at the halfway point.
Yeah, I agree with Mitch. I think it's Gazdov as well. Just so far, he's 4 clean sheets
1-0 to Mitch.
Okay. All right. Move us on.
Moving on, we'll go to the Defender of the Year.
Defender of the Year. I'm gonna pick. I don't know. You know what? I think that this could be Amir Didic's year. He's been kind of close and around that conversation for a while, and I think maybe this is his moment.
I'm going to go Fraser Aird Cavalry. I think he's been absolutely fantastic this season.
I always forget that fullbacks are like kind of eligible.
Not kind of eligible; they're just eligible.
Like they are eligible, but like
he's not a wing back. Like he's
not a wing back, but he's like an attacking player. Okay, I'll give it to you.
I'll go Rocco Romeo, Vancouver FC. I think he's been excellent, and Vancouver's off to a very good start this year.
That's a great shout too. It's a great shout.
Next up, you have the Coach of the Year.
So far through the start of the season, I think I'd be leaning towards Afshin Gotbi. Just the way that team is so different from last year, and the way that they've kind of come together very quickly, as we've mentioned, maybe more quickly than expected. I think that's probably where I'd be leaning at this point.
He hasn't lost. Carlos Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that sounds Charlie on this one, though.
Yes.
That's
Come on. 1-1. We're back.
Let's see. Let's go to the under-21 Player of the Year.
I want to go first.
Yep.
Before you steal it. I'm going to go with Emil Gazdov in this one.
I think that's a clear answer.
I think that's a shout. I mean, the other option is Kwesi Poku, maybe.
Noah Batney as well.
Noah Batney is a great shout. Batney is a great shout. I think it's probably. I'd call Gazdov the pretty clear front runner at this very early stage of the season, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, those are the three, but I'll make unanimous for Gazdov, I think.
Okay. Last 2-2?
Yeah,
they cancel out?
Last one's the big one, the Player of the Year so far this season.
Mitchell, do you want to go first? I kind of stole the last couple.
Sure. I'll go with Tristan Borges. I mean, he leads the league in assists. Got a couple goals to his name as well. I think he's been absolutely fantastic this season. So I'll go with Borges.
It's a player I mentioned earlier, and kind of for maybe a similar feeling that I have around what I said about Didic, but I think it's Manny Aparicio's year. If he can, I guess, stay healthy, knocking on wood. He's been in and around that conversation pretty much every year in the CPL, and just being in the situation he is now on a team that is playing so well and him being so important to it. I think this might be Manny's moment. No more pressure on Manny, though. I'm sorry. I know that Manny, for those who don't know, Manny was joking the other day because we put on the CPL Instagram story that, can he win the midfield battle, the two-time Player of the Year nominee, and he replied, "No pressure, guys." And then he went out and scored an absolute banger. So I think he thrives under the pressure. So sorry, Manny, there's a little more pressure. I think that you could be the Player of the Year this year. Good luck.
If we're throwing a prediction out there, I think you have to throw Daniel Parra's name in the mix as well. I think from the end of the season.
Oh, maybe that's my Defender of the Year pick, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I forgot about fullbacks.
Darn it.
That's a good show.
You know what? Yeah, we're back. I'm taking that. That's all the awards, right? That's all the awards we have, other than
one more
Golden
thing.
Boot.
Let's do a quick bold prediction for the rest of the season.
A quick bold prediction for the rest of the season. Is it a bold prediction? I don't know. Mitch, you got anything?
Tristan Borges will break the CPL assist record.
Whew. Okay. Vancouver FC will finish in the top 3.
I like it.
They're in second right now, so I guess it's not that bold, but we'll see. We'll see. Fly, Eagles, fly. All right.
Ruben Del Campo is going to break the CPL goals record this year.
Oh,
I believe it's currently 13 or 14.
14, I think. I believe it's 14.
We'll get back to you with an official number.
Whatever it is, Ruben Del Campo.
I'm pretty sure Joao Morelli scored 14 goals.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, but okay. What's he's at 5?
At 5 right now. So
yeah, 5 through.
It's on 20. It's on a 20 pace. I don't think I'll reach 20, but I think you get
5 through 7 games. Yeah, it'd be fun. I'd be cool with that. Mm-hmm. I'm always up for somebody scoring a ton of goals. I love a high golden boot number. I don't like a striker to. I like a striker to win it. I'm not a big midfielder tying for the golden boot fan. Sorry, Ollie Bassett.
8 penalties, whatever it was.
You are. Anyway. All right, those are some bold predictions. I hope nobody holds us to them because I can't handle that kind of confrontation and pressure. But anyway, thank you very, very much. I am no Manny Aparicio. Thank you, Benedict, for this little bit of fun in stoppage time. Thank you very much, Mitchell, for joining us. Thank you, everybody else who has chosen to stick around with us this week and to talk about the Canadian Premier League with us. As always, if you have any questions or anything you want to see on the show, drop us a line on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, I suppose. If you can somehow find an email address that gets to one of us, go right ahead. And again, thank you. Yeah. Don't try too hard. And as always, thank you to Volkswagen for sponsoring the CPL Newsroom. And we will see you all next week.
The streak is alive as Del Campo pops a league-leading 5th.
Genius! Austin Ricci back-to-back games with a goal, and that was special.
Pressure from 5. It sits up in the box. Navarro, Vasco Fry on the doorstep. Vancouver defends home turf. Derby number 1 goes to